All right, cool. So this is going to be a brand new podcast topic here. Today I do have a guest here and a good friend, Quinn. We are going to be discussing a little bit more about the startup of being a musician and artist. Different points that we're going to be looking at here is where do you start if you want to get your music out there? Where do you begin? How do you begin? How do you get your name out there? How do you find other people, make your connections with other people to go ahead and be able to set up shows, to go ahead and organize your own shows, if that's eventually what you're going to want to come down to. Maybe you're going to be looking at what venues should I be contacting to set up the show? What's the best way to go ahead and get in touch with the venue? What should I say? What should I do? And especially one of the largest ones that a lot of people tend to neglect is what venues should I be looking for and which venues are actually going to help me best off overall to go ahead and support my music so I can go ahead and get my music out to where I need to be. So just to start off here, Quinn, if you want to kind of discuss a little bit more based upon some things that you might be personally looking at as far as any of the topics that I kind of just pointed off there, as far as maybe you're still having some difficulty on maybe figuring out like where do I exactly start. Maybe it's more along the lines of if you're still going ahead and trying to get your music recorded. If there's anything you kind of want to say out to other people that might be going through the same thing as you trying to get started.
I don't know really where to start. When I started out the music, trying to be dad, so give me with.
All right, just to give you a heads up here, you are breaking out like tremendously out of nowhere again. I'm not sure if your microphone's still having
I know.
Some bit of the issues, but just to let you know that I did not pick up like any of that part you were trying to say before.
Yeah, I thought that would happen.
Yeah, we can always try again though, because editing is pretty easy.
And when we started out that doing the music, I had 2 guitars and 2 people. That was you and my dad. So I at least had start of support. What was you want to start in this conversation? Because I really first time I've ever done this. So
I mean, as far as getting started and everything, obviously, I mean, I am going to go in a lot more detail and a lot more depth about being a musician and everything I stated before as far as how do you begin, where do you start. Now, for someone, since I've known Quinn in general, since I used to work with his family actually a couple of years back, even more now, so I kind of lose track of time. But I've always known him to be he's just a musician at heart, which I feel like personally, if you want to go out there and create music, then you should label yourself as a musician. But obviously, then I know a lot of other people tend to disagree, be like, well, you're not a musician unless you do this or this or this, and be like, no, you know what? That's not how it is. If you have a passion for playing music and for...
There's a stigma really around.
If you have a passion for playing music and you know that's all you want to do, you keep working at it. And then if you keep working your ass off 24/7 and trying to perfect your art, in that case, you are an artist. You are a musician at that point because you don't give up. That's the way I see it. But as far as... personally, from what I've seen from you trying to grow as an artist and as a musician, I know for you, Quinn and I have discussed quite often, actually, and pretty frequently on different topics as far as how do I go about getting my recordings out there. A good couple of years back, I helped Quinn with his very first recording called Last Night that can be found on SoundCloud.
Oh, yeah.
That I'll post up in the link below after this podcast here. But that was one of the very first ones we did work on. That was actually in my parents' house when I had my studio set up there. And it was kind of more along the lines of trying to figure out what sound he wanted. So that's always the first thing you always really have to think about as far as getting started as a musician, someone who really has, that I don't know what exactly what it is you call it. It's more of just along the lines. It's just simply just passion and doing what you want. But it literally started off with me asking him a simple bunch of questions, and obviously the one most important one in my opinion is who are you trying to reach, and two, what kind of music are you trying to make? Genre obviously is always important, because without knowing what genre you want, your music's just going to kind of sound like a compilation of garbage. And I have seen that multiple times through other artists. Obviously, I'm not going to call anyone out, because that's not the point of this. The point of it is you need to really define your genre as best as possible. It's okay to mix things up, because there's a lot of music I listen to that is a larger compilation of different genres that just so happen to work out beautifully. But if you're just starting off, I feel like you should probably stick to one genre, and if you want to expand, go ahead and expand. It's as far as music goes and artists goes, it should be completely limitless. So creating Quinn's first song last night, it was a little bit more interesting, because he was definitely going more for a rock feel, more of like an older sense, the way I got it. And it kind of went a little bit more along the lines of alternative in a sense as well, even though alternative has now become one of the loosest umbrella terms that you can possibly define, since the music industry, I feel like personally, just kind of lost its touch on what genre even is anymore. But, once it comes down to this song in particular, after, discussing it with him and recording multiple times, trying to get the take that he specifically was really proud of, and what the final product ended up being, it was actually interesting to see that it kind of went more based upon, I guess more in a, I guess you would say it would end up more like melodic in a sense.
Very.
Only because there was a lot more than just guitar, because we ended up incorporating a lot more more of like keyboard and synth in there a little bit more, along with a different incorporation on the melodic sense of the I guess you would say we kind of layered another guitar part over that for the lead, what ended up definitely bringing out a lot more of the tone that I think you were personally looking for. If you kind of want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Go at the last minute, so I didn't hear the question.
No problem.
I know we were talking about the melody.
Yeah, so as far as the melody goes, and kind of like the direction that you were originally thinking you wanted your music to go to based upon the first recording, I guess the more I think about it, would you say that was still closer to what your wow, I can't speak today. Still not enough coffee. Your expectations, is that kind of what you were looking for in your English can be difficult. Is that what you were like really looking for? And far as the rock melodic sense, do you plan on maybe still going a little bit more down that route? Or are you looking more for something a little bit more harder, perhaps, as far as the rock music goes?
There are several songs in my book, rock fourth, on that. They're drastic.
All right, so we are going to have an interesting time being able to edit this out. It seems like your microphone does not want to pick up here too much, and that's actually kind of...
It just doesn't want to participate.
No, it doesn't seem like it really does, and honestly, like, trying to be able to, I mean, obviously we're going to still continue doing this to the best of our ability. I really hope eventually his microphone does pick up a little bit more, so we can continue on this topic, because what better way to get people to understand and to help them be able to do what they want than someone who's currently doing it and building himself up every single day as well. So I don't know exactly what the situation is. I'm not sure if your Wi-Fi might be spotty or whatever, but
it's absolute shit. I guarantee it's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good possibility. I'm using my Wi-Fi from my place right now too. I had to buy myself an adapter and everything. But yet again, I mean, everyone's not going to have the finances to go ahead and have the same equipment as me. We can only use what we can use, because at a point in time, I had to use my phone for a lot of stuff too, and I absolutely hated it because I was having the same issues as far as the spottiness goes and everything. But I mean, there is obviously going to be other multiple times. I'm going to be looking into investing in a brand new microphone again in the future, so I can actually do one-on-one podcasts with people too, considering I have the interface and everything set up for it. Because I do have my gaming headset technically that we could use, just plug into the computer and have it that way too, if we want to get something set up one-on-one there. But I figured, since it's going to be a little bit easier possibly going through this way, because this way none of us really have to put much effort or really move or have to drive or anything like that. But I know I'm getting off topic a little bit here, but it's a frustration that when you want to go ahead and you want to set something up and someone else is really, really excited to start doing a podcast, try to get their name out there, go ahead, try to help others too, and have a passion for doing this, and internet decides, hey, you know what, I'm not going to work today. I'm going to prevent all this from happening. And I know that feeling all too well, and it's not a fun feeling. Anyways, going back to the normal topic here, as far as Quinn wanting to be the artist and musician that he is, as he stated, from what I thought I heard, since, like we mentioned, the choppiness was in there quite frequently, to the point where it just went kind of silent. But as far as what he wanted, he did bring up a wide variety of different musicians and inspirations to me, and be like, hey, this is kind of the sound I'm looking for. Do you think it would be possible for us to go ahead and possibly go down this route? Now, as far as me being who I am, I'm not 100% familiar as far as recording process goes. I am a complete do-it-yourself artist in general. A lot of my recordings I do for my personal projects, for acoustic work and everything. It's all done through the normal equipment that I have in general as well. I do feel like, personally, for me, recording acoustic stuff is definitely significantly easier compared to having to track drums, having to track electric guitar, vocals, and everything else as well. Vocals isn't too difficult. Obviously, you just have to layer that as a separate track. That's pretty straightforward. And speaking of vocals, that's one thing we were actually really considering about when we were recording his first song here. And originally, we were just going to do something as simple as Quinn going ahead and layering his guitar piece. We didn't necessarily have a lead at the time. It was more of just a rhythm bass, but you need rhythm in order to get anywhere for your music in general. So it definitely was a really good start. It was good to know he already knew what he wanted. He knew what genre he was going for. He already knew what he wanted the overall product to sound like, or at least an idea of what he wanted to sound like. In that case, it definitely helps me out a ton, because the more he can provide me with, the more I can give him back in return. Now, since it did start off at just more rhythm guitar, we were thinking about maybe adding some lyrics and vocals in there. And it was interesting the way it kind of grew and kind of like shaped itself in a way. So for those who haven't listened to it yet, because I know it hasn't really been out there for too much. I know I did only a little bit of marketing promotion at the time. Obviously, through here, I'll go ahead and, like I mentioned, I'll be posting up the SoundCloud link for the song here, so more people can listen to, definitely to help you out as well, because that's kind of the purpose of all this here. But the way it kind of molded together, it definitely ended up a lot different than what both of us actually even had in mind. Like we discussed before, it definitely came out more melodic, a lot. I guess ambient was definitely the true word that I was looking for, because there was a lot more.
Oh, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, that's good.
But yeah, for a moment you cut out. It was like.
See, that's why I have everything actually being set up on my end too, which is good, because I'm recording through different programs here to make sure everything works out perfectly.
Right.
So if for some reason, like I said, it doesn't pick up you, it is going to obviously bother me because I want your input in this too. But obviously, there's not much we can do if your internet decides that it doesn't want to work. But like I said, we'll just continue working to the best of our abilities here. But kind of continuing on to what I was talking about before, once it came to this song as a whole, it ended up being that it just simply did not need any lyrics. The way the guitar work worked over one another as far as rhythm and lead, adding in more synth and keyboard into there, it was definitely something. I'm not exactly sure where that inspiration really came from, because I know I worked with Quinn one-on-one with that project. I helped him out with the lead part and as well as the keyboard synth part, try to figure out different notes. Obviously, we just started off on the root notes that he originally played, and then we kind of just collaborated together a little bit more to try to find out a brand new sound to really bring out. And it was interesting because right before we started this podcast here, I listened to your song about a handful of times, and the more I listened to it, I realized it's actually for, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, or am I? I don't know. But, when I listened back to it, the recording came out really, really clean, actually. And it came out really good. And especially for, like I mentioned, for someone who doesn't do this as a living, I just only did it because I thought, hey, you know what? It can't be this difficult as far as recording, the basics here. And what we ended up coming out with is something that I actually am still very, very satisfied and happy with the outcome in general. Because I know Quinn just got back to me, what was it, about maybe like almost like last week, I think you said you were looking for the song, trying to see if I still had it. Obviously, I always keep copies of my work somewhere, a matter of where it might be. Well, that's a different story. I had to kind of research that and figure out where everything was. So everything was originally on my freelance YouTube channel, and then I think I got rid of that for some reason because I thought I had a backup file, and whatever the case was, we ended up finding the file. So for those who really, really want to listen to it, I would really, both of us especially, would love the opportunity to go ahead and have your input on it. See what you think, maybe what, if you have a certain input or opinion on what you think maybe could go ahead and possibly help him build up being the musician and artist that he is. Obviously, don't be, and this goes for anything too and for everyone, if you put in your input and he decides not to take it, please don't be offended by that. At least he took the time and consideration to actually think about it. That's one thing I always have to throw out there, because that's happened to me multiple times. Sometimes I have taken other people's criticism and opinions, and I've actually managed to incorporate that into my work. Doesn't mean it's going to work all the time. Just kind of depends on the artist and the musician themselves, what path they want to go forward with. So that's a whole nother topic in general, but it is very important still nonetheless. But after recording all that a little bit more, I know Quinn wanted to go more into being able to record more of his work, try to work with me one-on-one, try to get that marketed out there and advertised a little bit more, considering that's what I do. I do a lot of marketing, I do a lot of advertising, a lot of promotions. That's what I love to do. It's something I've always been known to do. And so I've always wanted to be able to have Quinn be able to continue working his way up. I can clearly see, it's clear as a bell on how badly he wants this. And so the more passion he has for his work, and the more passion he has for wanting to get his name out there as a musician and as an artist, gives me more of a reason to actually want to work with him. Because who wants, let's be honest, especially hypothetically, Quinn, if the role was vice versa, and I came to you and I was like, hey, I just want to go ahead and maybe record this bit. And you would be like, okay, cool. What is it you're looking to do? And I kind of run through some things with you, but then you don't really see the passion there. You're just like, let's just get it done. It's good enough. Great. You're not going to want to say and be like, you know what? I want to continue working with this person. If they have no passion, you're literally just wasting your time, basically.
Yeah, that's a question about drive. If they don't have the drive for the project, you can see it when they're working on it. They'll either stand there and slowly do the work, or they just won't get anything done at all.
Yeah, and it really much is so drive, because I mean, it kind of goes along the lines with anything else you ever wanted to accomplish in life. If you're like me and you want to get more into perfecting your art of video editing and videography, you wouldn't just go ahead and be saying, good enough, this edit is good enough. No, you're going to continue studying it until you perfect it to I guess what you can say, what you would label as perfection. Because you can't necessarily perfect art. You can only perfect it in the image that you want it to be, that kind of satisfy your needs and your wants. Same goes for music. You got to keep on working on it. You got to keep on building up. I mean, personally, for me, I mean, I obviously any musician started off all in the same place. We all try to figure out, what do I do to even get started in general? Like, I know nothing. And for my personal experience, obviously, I've been in Quinn's shoes 100% of the time. Technically, I still feel like I am. Only due to certain situations, but kind of just to start off here a little bit more on getting started as a musician. Obviously, the one thing we can all agree on is you need that drive, you need that passion. If you don't have that, why are you doing what you're doing? Then clearly this isn't what you should be doing, and it's something completely different in general. Now it also does come down to
fun with it. You can have the drive and have fun with it.
No, yeah.
But not turning out anything that you're proud of is just you messing around, sort of.
Yeah, I do that see in a sense. I mean, obviously, because like even for me, it started off as just a hobby, really. I never actually thought I wanted to get more into playing live, or anything along the lines of that. I didn't really think, I was like, oh, maybe I'll just record my own personal work, have some fun with it, but eventually it kind of just grew more into a true passion, which I know a lot of people can definitely relate to, because I mean, we have so many musicians out here in general in the world alone. But I mean, if we're even just speaking more along the lines of like local artists and everything here in Arizona,
there's a lot of people in Arizona.
There are so many artists out here, and
so many.
You know, I know, once again, I'm going to kind of go in this a little bit further, because I know it still kind of goes along with some of the topics we're going to be discussing about. But just like anyone else in this world, we are all going to have artists and musicians we love to death, and we're going to have other musicians we think are just not as great, and they maybe should do this and improve, but... And I definitely do agree. Yes, there are also other artists that I personally believe should just stop playing. Like I said, I am never going to point fingers or put out any names here for anyone who ever, any band I feel like that. Because one, I know so many bands that I tend to get some of them confused. So I don't want to say anything wrong. If someone's actually absolutely interested in who those bands might be, you'll never find out, because that's not important, because that goes for everyone. We all have our loves, we all have our likes and dislikes, and sometimes highly despise certain artists. But it kind of, for where I think Quinn and I meet the most, is that we both have a huge drive and huge passion for music. Part two is that we both know that we want to be musicians, and this is almost like a true calling to both of us. Or if it is, then more so 100%, then awesome. because I know it definitely is for me, and based upon the way Quinn has worded everything, obviously he wants nothing more than to do this, which by all means, let's
Yeah,
continue
I've tried
working on
other fields of work. None of them worked out for me.
Yeah. Because another thing that definitely connects me a little bit more into working with Quinn too as a musician is his passion for playing guitar in general. Now, I know there's a lot of guitarists out there, but a lot of them tend to stray away from what music actually really is. Now, even though Quinn is younger than me, he still, in my eyes, he was still brought up properly with real, legitimate music. And what is that I'm talking about? Real legitimate music? Nothing in the music industry today. It's not that class A garbage pop rock music. No, it's actual rock music, how rock should have been from the start. Just like how I was brought up with blues. I've always been a blues kid in general. So like you start from your roots. That's where it is.
You can hear it in the work of the artists, their inspirations. And I think you can definitely hear it if you hear me play for about 10 minutes. You'll be like, oh, that band, that band, that band, that band, and that band.
Yeah, you can definitely hear the inspiration that like someone has drawn from other artists by far. But I mean, going into the fact that you personally were brought up more on old school classic rock and roll and everything, and obviously I have to have an appreciation for that, or else we wouldn't have a lot of the artists we even have today that I still, personally love and still listen to. But that kind of goes along the lines of a little bit further into different genres as well. But if we're specifically, we're talking about rock and roll in general here. Now, this is something I actually do personally want to bring up because I have been seeing a lot of conflicts here once it comes to rock and roll as a genre. Now, when I personally think of rock and roll, I'm going to have a completely different way of seeing it than other people see it. When I think rock and roll, I think of bands like, Ozzy Osbourne, even though he was classified as metal, but you know what? He has rock inspiration. And if you disagree with that, then you live under a rock. I'm sorry, you do. I loved Ozzy growing up. Although the other bands I'm about to list necessarily aren't bands I listened to growing up, but it's bands I know that are rock and roll or have some kind of like heavy metal influence to them. Obviously, like I stated, Ozzy was always a big one. Another one I actually personally loved growing up was Bon Jovi. I mean, it's very cliche, but he has very catchy music.
Oh, come on. Living on a Prayer, all of them good songs.
And it's like,
you can't go wrong with that.
I mean, obviously, then you're going to have more based upon, like, what rock and roll is. I mean, people might see, Led Zeppelin, for example, or possibly even, like, Def Leppard if you want to get more old school, like, heavy metal, like, hair metal with it. If you want to go more towards AC/DC, if you want to go more towards, I don't know, even, like, older, what I would still label as rock in a form, I would still be looking at the Beatles or Rolling Stones is a great example as well. Yeah, a lot of people tend to disagree with me for some reason on that one, but I mean, just like there's so many subgenres of everything nowadays. It's really, really hard to break anything down. Now, if someone wants to disagree with me and saying, hey, Beatles aren't rock, okay, cool. I'm not going to argue with you because that's your opinion. That's just what I see. If you think I'm wrong, then too bad. That's just my opinion as well. No one can truly say who's wrong or who's right because we're all going to have different opinions on subgenres or even just genres in general. But rock and roll at its purest form is gold. It will always be gold. That's what's created so many amazing, fantastic artists we have today. And this is still what, young and inspiring artists such as ourselves and other musicians out here in Arizona or any other state or worldwide in general, we all draw inspiration from our favorite artists. And in this case, since Quinn was more based about that old school rock and roll feel, obviously with a form of a twist to it, like he mentioned before, you can really, really hear his inspirations and what artists he really loves based upon his playing style. And I personally think that is fantastic because we all need a place we need to start. You have to have your inspirations, because if you don't, then where are you really starting from? Unless you just had your own unique thing, then that's cool. But like, he had his bunch of different artists and everything, and then the more he listened to it, and he's like, you know what? This is what I want. I know this is what I want. This sounds awesome. So I'm going to continue down this path. I did the same thing. Even though I mentioned that I was brought up with blues, I still, I thought about it and I was like, well, maybe this isn't necessarily meant for me. I tried it for a little bit and I was just like, I'm not really feeling it. So that's why I'm more along the lines of like emo punk now pretty much, because I don't know why, just the sound of it I think is the coolest thing in the world. So I listen to all the different bands that influenced me to be able to create the music I do today as well. And I also feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm pretty sure I'm not because that would be ridiculous, if you don't have a passion, or not even a passion, if you don't even feel like certain artists, and I don't understand why this is a thing, but so many artists out here just kind of start playing just to play. They don't really have a said sound to them, and it kind of just sounds like noise. Now, what I don't understand is why they end up becoming a lot larger than other artists who have true passion. They really, truly dedicate their time, their blood, sweat, and tears into all their work, and why those artists tend to get neglected and they just kind of get shot out.
I believe it's because it's on a technical scale rather than how much effort and passion they're putting into it. If you really want to get technical about it, I met a guy the other day who was shredding the guitar like nothing, right? But yeah, you could feel it, that just something about his guitar playing was kind of dull and dead. He was hitting all the notes right, but just didn't have any soul to it.
Yeah, I definitely do understand what you mean. I mean, I have seen that even when I was still in like high school too. For example, I remember seeing this kid. He would bring his electric guitar and mini amp with him to like lunch hour, actually.
Yeah, I did that too.
He would always go ahead and only play he would only play solos of the song. And for me personally, I'm a little iffy on this only because just from what I listen to in general. But I am not a fan of solos. I'm really not. I like small little chord progressions or more of like a melody in something, or just throw out more of like a lead. I've never been a person for solos. Now, that's not saying that I think solos are pointless, because that's so not true. I've listened to so many different bands that have amazing, phenomenal solos, and you know what? They're amazing artists, and there's no doubt about that. But once it comes down to it, just, since it is my own personal belief, I just don't like solos. I've never been a person for a solo. I don't know. Something about them kind of turns me off a little bit. But I mean, once again, that kind of goes based upon the artist you are. If you like solos, go ahead. Just make sure it actually sounds right in the music. Other than that, if you just put in a solo just a solo, no, you're doing it wrong. And that goes for, especially when it comes more down to like the metal scene too, but that's a whole completely different story and topic here. Oh. But, it is interesting to really see a little bit more on how everyone was personally brought up, what music they were listening to, and how it affects them as the artist or musician we are today. Now, another thing I do want to kind of discuss a little bit more, I'm trying to get a little bit more into depth about this, is it still goes based upon literally on how do you start as a musician. Obviously, go at step one, know what you want to do.
Grab a guitar.
Step two, grab a guitar, whatever instrument you want to play. It doesn't matter if you want to be a bassist, cool, you can do your thing. If you want to be if you are playing violin, cool. Like. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what instrument it is. Just pick that up if that's your passion and you know it's your passion. Work your ass off 24/7 to perfect your art if that's what you want. continue working and then create your own music, create your own lyrics. If you have lyrics in there, if you want instrumental, keep it instrumental. But now, obviously, the next step is once you have all your songs and material together, obviously you're going to want to find out a way to go ahead and distribute your music, and obviously step A, to record your music, which I mentioned before, Quinn and I have been working on to the best of our ability to go ahead and get his work out there, because I want nothing more than for him to be able to succeed in what he wants, because why wouldn't I? I love music. He loves music. You know what? Might as well continue building that up into something absolutely insane. Who knows where he might take off? Just like how local artists here, there's some that started off literally from nothing, and you know what happened? They ended up being some of the largest names we still listen to that are on the radio constantly, that are making thousands and thousands of dollars based upon royalties, based upon merchandise, based upon album sales or record sales, whatever the case might be. But just like everyone else knows, you got to start small. You build yourself up. You got to start from somewhere. Some people might not necessarily have the tools and, different things in order to get started, but there is always a way to get to where you want, which we'll kind of save that discussion for another time as well, because we only have so much time that we can kind of talk about everything here today. But if any topics we don't get to, just kind of throwing this out here right now, if you guys do want to hear a part 2 with Quinn and I, hopefully next time the audio won't be so much as finicky, but it seems like you've been a little bit better here. Sounds like you've been holding the microphone a little bit closer, No,
I am standing on top of my Wi-Fi router.
Oh, okay. Well, that actually seems to be working out a little bit better then. But yeah, if anyone wants to hear part 2, if there's any certain topics that you really specifically want to hear more, if you actually truly want to hear, Quinn's story and everything and his side of it a little bit more, and get to more in depth about his personal feelings and everything a little bit more based upon the route he's going down, let us know so we can go ahead and organize that for you. I'll be more than happy to do that for you. Obviously, we will have to plan at a time because we both live our separate lives. We all have work we need to get done. So we'll figure that out, though. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. But going back more into the startup and everything. So let's say you already got everything you wanted. You got your music recorded and everything. Now it comes down to how do you get your name out there? Now, a lot of people know that the main way that we do all the work now is all through social media platforms. Obviously, you're going to be looking at Facebook. You're going to be looking at Twitter. You're going to be looking at Instagram. You're going to be looking at YouTube, more importantly than anything. But any social media platform you're going to be looking at, especially when it comes down to different sites such as SoundCloud, like I mentioned before, or whatever other websites that are pretty much the same thing as SoundCloud. It's definitely the best way to go ahead and get yourself out there. But there are different techniques I do feel like people do struggle with or just pay no attention to. Sometimes you have to understand that the old school ways are still some of the best ways to go ahead and market and advertise yourself.
Getting demo CDs on little CD-ROMs and passing them out at a Walmart. I've seen so many people do that.
Even that too, if you're handing out different.
Last 2 years.
Oh yeah, you'll see a ton of those. I mean, you still constantly, every time you go to a concert, you'll see some independent artists handing out their demo CDs for free and stuff. Which, you know what, I've always taken them because I always want to explore new music in general. And if I don't like it, then I don't like it. Then it wasn't meant for me. But I guarantee there's someone out there who'd be like, you know what, I love this. You know what, I'm going to keep on listening to this. This is my new jam right here. This is what I want to listen to. And I get that.
Even if you don't like it, someone will be like, put that shit on replay.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I came across so many different artists that I've never heard of that I fell in love with. Regardless if they were just like brand new or if they were a little bit larger, it depends on the situation. Because I'm still exploring different genres out here in general. But yeah, I mean, as far as the marketing and everything goes, like Quinn said, definitely go ahead, get your demo CD out there. the do-it-yourself project has always been the main thing that people do, especially when it comes down to now, because everything in the music industry is so oversaturated in general. It's really difficult to get your name out there, and it's just really hard. Personally, I feel like
it takes time.
Yeah, you can't please everybody, and you got to know that you got to keep that mindset, and especially you got to keep the mindset that the music's more for you than it is for other people. The fact that other people love it just as much as how you enjoy and love everything you're doing just means that you have a new connection. You're personally, that's just the way I see it. My music that I create, just kind of keep off the side here for Life Size Mirror. I mean, all my stuff is very, very personal to me. It all has a very deep connective meaning to my life and me as an individual, just as any other artist writes their music and writes their lyrics because it means something truly, truly to them. And it's just a message they're trying to bring out. Obviously there's going to be other bands that are kind of more talking about and singing about like random stuff.
Yeah, there's always going to be these like parody bands and stuff who are going to have their own meaningful projects in their own ways.
Yeah. And just, I don't know, it's something about the fact that you really, really need to like trying to keep that mindset in playing the music you do. It is very, very difficult. Just real quick before I get back to the whole marketing thing again, you need emotion, and a lot of emotion, in order to create the music that you really want to release. Because I found out personally, for me, the best time for me to write music or to write lyrics is when I'm actually just very emotional in general. I don't know why, but it seems to work out the best. It doesn't even matter what mood I'm in. I can be confused as all hell, and I pick up a guitar and somehow things start coming naturally to me, where other days I go through a lot of writer's block and I'm like, I can't think of anything. This is really pissing me off. It's been months since I've written anything. I can't get anything done. So I do definitely think there's a huge emotional attachment to music as well, and even vice versa, because music should always, in my opinion, should always display your emotion in general, because that just proves you're a normal human being, which is what I personally like to see. But going based more on marketing, yeah, get your music out there as best as you can. Use the social media platforms to your advantage. Do the old school ways, or even going up to people, giving them their CD. Just kind of talk to them a little bit about what it is that you're trying to do, what it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, same thing goes for like if you're running a business, because let's be honest, starting up your own band or starting up your own independent, acoustic album or anything, this is all a business in a sense, because your goal is to make money. If your goal is to make money, it's, in a sense, it is going to be a business. You got to keep working your ass off 24/7 for you to get to where your expectations are. And whatever the goal is you want to meet, you got to keep working at it. And in that case, it is a business. Because, I mean, by that time you stop, you're done. That's pretty much it. But, there's a lot of different techniques you can honestly use. Some are more effective than others. The way I see it, obviously for me, since the new age now is more based upon social media, there's so much traffic and so much oversaturation in everything, and there's a lot of static, a lot of noise anywhere you go now. So it's really kind of based upon SEO for search engine optimization, for like Google Analytics and stuff. I know people take a look at, but the problem is that costs money. If you have the money for that and you have the money to advertise yourself like crazy, then good on you. It just so happened to work that way. But for a lot of people, like what I went through and what I still go through, and I know a lot of people definitely will relate to this, like, well, what if you don't have money? What can you do to really get yourself out there? Well, from what I've personally learned, that's helped me over time, regardless. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a musician or if you're a business owner or anything. It works for everything from what I have personally seen and done. It's all a matter of make connections. If you don't have connections, it's going to be so much harder for you. You got to go out to shows. You got to show who you are. You got to make new friends, talk to people, have a same passion and love for other artists or our music appreciators. That's something I've always done. And honestly, I know a lot of people don't like it because a lot of people don't like getting out of it's not in their comfort zone to go out of the shows on their own, or even with other people, or even in this case, go up to other people and just start conversations with them.
Yeah.
Because I know that is very, very difficult, because I understand. I've been there before, but that's why I tried working through it, because as not only a business owner and as someone who's personally gone through the whole local scene experience, I had no choice but to go up to other people and make some kind of connection. And you know what? It worked. You can be really awkward. It doesn't matter, because I still tend to be very awkward in general. Other people disagree. A lot of people agree. Whatever. I don't care. If I'm awkward, cool. If I'm not, cool. It shouldn't really matter. Just, you have to at least go ahead and attempt to get your name out there, or else then what are you doing? If you don't make any connections in general, who are you inspiring to actually listen to your music? How else are you going to get people to listen to your music if you don't talk about it? Obviously, there's different methods. Like, you can make a YouTube video about it. You can make, like some donation thing about it, like help support my album and everything. But the problem is with that too is, who's going to care about supporting you if they don't really get to know you as an artist or as a person? And like, they want to know what your passion is. They want to know that this is going to be your life. Like, this is your soul. This is your true calling. And, it's always really interesting, because a lot of people are more introverts now, more so than ever, than what I've personally seen.
The technology era has created more introverts than ever in the history of mankind, just because now we're all connected through tablets, electronics, the internet, all of that.
Yeah, and
getting out there is still the best thing you can do.
Oh, yeah, and it is kind of, I understand to a point that technology has helped out a huge chunk of all these different situations and issues that we might see as issues, but at the same time, it will never be going out there and you have to sell yourself. That's literally what it comes to. I hate that term more than anything in the world, but I need to keep that in mind, because it's always worked. You need to sell yourself. And if you don't do that, it's not that you won't get recognition. Obviously, there's other techniques that might very well work better for you. God knows, like, everything I'm telling you right now, you might have a different technique that just works out wonders for you. And if that's the case, awesome, because then I want to know so I can spread that information over to other people to help, better themselves as well. So like I said, these are just the things I personally know. That's why I want guests on these conversations as well, because there's a lot of different techniques and methods that could very well be used in order to better ourselves, regardless of what we are trying to do and what we're trying to perfect in the manner of the artwork that we are trying to do. But now, when we get past marketing in general, we're going to be looking at a little something more along the lines of, okay, my music, say your music's out there now. People recognize you a little bit. You're just getting your feet wet. You got your pinky toe in the door there, and you're trying to make sure it doesn't just get slammed on. So now we're kind of going to be looking a little bit. Yeah, it's literally what it is. And oh my God, the analogy is too real. I can't even express that enough. It hurts the first time trying to get yourself out there, because you think you're all great and dandy. That is until you play and perform your very first show live. Now, for me, that was the most terrifying thing in the world. I wanted nothing to do with being on stage. I didn't know what to do in general, so I had a lot of bad habits that I had to overcome, because one of the main things to keep my nerves calm on stage my very first time is I had a tendency to grind my teeth, and obviously that caused a lot of problems, so don't do that, obviously. But that was just something I just started doing, so I had to try to figure out different things to help calm my nerves and everything, and it was it's like public speaking. It's absolutely terrifying. Obviously, it'll be
Okay.
easier for other people, but I mean, for someone like me who hated public speaking, who hated being up in front of people, and everyone's sole like attention is just on me as an individual, that's a lot of pressure on any individual. Now, overcoming that is going to take, I mean, for me, it took a while. It took a little over a year and a half, personally, I feel like. It did take a lot longer because, like I said, I had more of an issue with it. Now, once it comes down to, even like Quinn here, I don't know, because it's just based upon who he is as a person, how confident, he sees himself as an artist, as a musician. Obviously, if he knows his stuff down flat, then,
If I knew it flat and I got it all down, I could rock that stage, no problem.
yeah. But like, and going back to like me too, which kind of sucks in my opinion, I knew my stuff like the back of my hand. But you know what? I still couldn't do it. I still messed up so much, because by the time you step foot on that stage and you have people staring at you, there's a lot of different things flowing through your head and through your mind. So whatever
you'll be
techniques,
nervous, you'll be scared, you'll be like, why did I do this? And then you'll be like,
it's
for
true
good reason.
stage fright. True stage fright. But by the time you finish your set, there's that moment of euphoria and like adrenaline rush where you're just like, you know what? That was really cool. That actually went over really well. I want to do it again. But the problem is you're already done. And it's going to constantly happen over and over and over and over again. And it never stops. And I'm not kidding. Like, as a musician, for what I am now, I've been playing for God knows how long. I lost count on how many years I've been playing. I'm pretty sure I know it's been over like 10 plus years easily. But as far as playing live, nowhere near that. It's only been maybe a handful of years, if anything. And I still always have the pre-show nerves. I always still get really bad anxiety before all my shows. I tend to overthink things. I'm like, well, what if I forget this part? Then what do I do? But eventually you get to the point in time where, just like anything else, practice makes perfect. You got to keep doing it. You got to fight past the nerves and the frustrations. And then eventually you end up doing a lot better. Now, I only say you end up doing a lot better because those nerves can very well come back whenever they want, depending on what your level of anxiety is, like me. Obviously it'll vary from person to person, but it's just something to think about and to take notice of, because it takes a lot of time, personally, I feel like, to be able to truly be comfortable up on stage. Now, I have just recently broke a barrier myself. As far as being able to play live on stage, I eventually came to the point where it's just like, you know what? It doesn't matter what people think of me. You know why? Because I've played so often and I perfected my art and I perfected like everything that I wanted to, that people will actually start to appreciate this. Because if I work harder, then that will please them more in some kind of sense. It might not always, but you got to try. So It's just the little things you got to keep in your mind to really help overcome your fear of playing shows and everything. But I know once it comes, I mean, you can be completely nervous like 1 second, get up on stage and it's your first time and you do phenomenal. And if that's the case, by all means, just awesome, good on you. But as we all know, that can be the complete opposite. You can be very, very confident in yourself. And by the time you get up on that stage, you can blow it. So it's just, don't be overconfident in anything you do. You got to have some caution. You always got to be prepared for the worst, unfortunately. Your very first show is never going to be your best. I guarantee it. It's impossible. But yeah, there's so many different things to really look at. And one thing I am curious a little bit more is, Quinn, when you go ahead and get your music together and everything, obviously you're going to have a lot of those thoughts and opinions obviously running through your head. But Do you have any like idea, maybe as far as like what you're looking for as when you're trying to like organize a show or something that you want to play at? Is there like certain things that you think other people should maybe know about that I haven't mentioned just yet as far as this goes?
Hecklers?
Yeah, you will always get hecklers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something very good topic to actually discuss about as well. So everywhere you go, you'll always see at least a minimum of one heckler. I've had
No matter what, no matter where you are, no matter what.
Yeah. Now for me, it was a little bit different because yes, I don't know. Hecklers are interesting because there's certain hecklers that'll just be like they can just be being an asshole because they're drunk, or maybe because they actually don't like your music, in which case, why are you there to begin with? If you're there to see another band, then maybe you should step outside, which would actually be more appropriate in my opinion, so I don't have to deal with you and other people can still enjoy themselves. Now, if everyone's heckling you, then you know something's wrong. But if you're always going to have that one individual who's going to want to be a pain in the ass and is trying to cause you just disappointment. And the first time I have experienced that, I don't remember exactly when it was or like what it was in general, because I haven't played a lot of shows, but I've played enough to the point where everything tends to like blend together a little bit. But I do remember I have had a heckler, and literally I've only ever had one, and it's never happened again, thankfully. But it was interesting because yes, they were drinking, but they seemed sober at the same time too. And this was when I was playing my my acoustic stuff, if I remember correctly. Because I don't think for my full band I've ever actually had anything, because I don't think we ever played enough shows for anyone to heckle us, because we only played like once a year. But yeah, it definitely is very, very difficult to overcome at first. It catches you so off guard, and it makes you if you're like me, it made you very pissed off and made you kind of second guess about if your work is good, and it makes you go through a lot of different thoughts and emotions, and it's really, really weird when you first get it, because you don't, at first you're like, oh, it doesn't really matter, this guy's just a loser. But the problem is, and I know this goes for another topic as well, but it does tie in with anxiety too. If you have anxiety issues in general, or just diagnosed with any form of anxiety, it really, really attaches itself to you, and it's literally like it's like a leech. It doesn't really quite leave right away. It kind of lingers in your head, and
anxiety never goes away.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And when you have someone heckling you, it doesn't make things any better. You know, you're always going to have people out there who just have no appreciation for certain things. Now, you can't look at it in the fact where it'd be like, oh, this person's just being a dick. My music's like really, really good and stuff like that. I mean, it depends how you word it, obviously. And if it's one thing if you keep it in your head, it's another thing if you bring it out loud. But it kind of ties back into the topic where not everyone's going to have the same appreciation for you, regardless of what it is you do. I'm not going to have, it just recently for me, let's take it this way. I did not like metal music at all for the longest time. I thought it was garbage. That's an honest opinion. I honestly did not like metal. Now, this isn't saying that I didn't think the people or the musicians playing their music were phenomenal artists and musicians, because they were. I can never play how they play. They spent years training on how to perfect what they do. And by all means, I respect that hardcore. Doesn't mean I have to love their music though.
No.
But that also ties in for another huge conversation. But, just recently, I've grown to love metal music, only because, even though certain metal music like metalcore I couldn't get into, but now there's some I love, only because some friends of mine have been like, hey, you know what? I'm going to get you more into metal. I got to find something that you absolutely love. And you know what? It worked. I tried. I pushed myself.
Throw out a couple bands.
Okay, so a band that I've been listening to nonstop is Cane Hill. I don't know what it is about them, but originally I would never listen to an artist or a band like them. But the more I listen to them, I don't know what it is, but like I can't say all their music. Some of it's still a little like, okay, this is a little much. But some of their songs, like, yeah, I'm totally going to headbang to this. I would totally go in a mosh pit for this because this is really cool. Now, another band that I recently started getting into a little bit more, and I'm going to thank my friend John for this because he is the reason why I got into more of metal. No, I still can't get into Death Clock. It's just something that's still out of my realm. It's not that I don't understand it. It's just I know it's not for me. But another band I've been actually listening to a lot more is what's the band? Silent Planet, I believe, that John got me into a little bit more that I've been listening to. Yes, it's more of like metalcore, but it's more of like a melodic sense, and just a twist they did to it I thought was really, really fascinating. I'm like, you know what? They're really good. I'm going to continue listening to them. And those are just two examples because I can't remember the rest of the bands. There's so many he's shown me. But the fact that I started from just wanting nothing to do with it to finally opening up my mind and be like, you know what? There's some really, really good artists out here. And it's just, you have to broaden your horizon so much more, or else at least try. Give it a try. If you don't like it the first time, you don't have to listen to it again. I get that 100%. But like, if you're going to a show, you've never heard an artist before, and they maybe played one or two songs that might have been a little bit rough around the edges, that may have been like brand new. You don't know what it is, or even if they have played it before, you know, there's so many variables that can come into play. But don't heckle people. There's so many new artists out here that just want to do what they want to. They have that love and passion that they just want to better themselves. And you're not helping the cause at all. You're literally there you're serving no purpose to anything at that point in time. And to anyone who has experienced a heckler or is going to experience a heckler, just keep this in mind. They don't matter. You have everyone else. One person's opinion should never, ever change your opinion on who you are as a person, who you are as an artist, as a musician, or whatever it is that you have a found love for. Don't let that affect you, because there's always going to be those certain people out there who just want to ruin your life just because they can. And you know what? There's people like that everywhere you go, that we call them trolls online, as everyone is aware of. You know what we call them in everyday life that are also trolls? They're assholes. Yes, that is right. They serve no purpose. They're literally there just to make people feel terrible. And that's really all it comes down to. That's the way I see it. Now, there's a huge difference between someone being a heckler and someone actually trying to give you criticism on maybe how to better yourself. Now, a lot of people tend to word things completely wrong, which I get, because that's the world. We're only human. We're going to screw up on a lot of things. But if you're giving someone criticism, give them true criticism. Be like, hey, I thought this concept and this idea was really neat, but what if you tried this? Maybe have you thought about doing this? I think that would sound really cool. It's a matter of how you approach it. Don't go up to someone and be like, hey, you know what? This just was not working out for you. I don't understand why you're even trying to play this. It would be so much better if you just played this. It would suit you a lot better. Yes, in a way, I would understand where you're coming from, but don't represent yourself as another asshole. There's a right and wrong way to criticize everyone. If you want to criticize someone's work and throw in your opinions, do it correctly and be like, hey, these are just some thoughts I've had. Maybe you want to take these in consideration. And please, artists, if you hear that and you take that the wrong way, speak your mind, please. I'm so sick of people taking just getting butthurt over everything.
And misunderstandings like that cause the biggest problems. amongst
Yeah.
music.
It really does. Even if it's amongst like someone just playing as like in a full band or as an independent artist or whatever it is, miscommunication, that's literally what everything comes down to as a whole, is communication in general. But miscommunication causes so many issues. And it is ridiculous how many fights and, breakouts, like, not that I have personally seen, but a lot of things I have heard over online on larger bands, smaller bands, etc., etc. And so many things could be solved if you just thought about how you worded things and how you're actually going to word things. And could I possibly be a hypocrite for this? Yes. You know why? Because like I mentioned before, we're only human. I understand you're going to word something wrong at least one time. I guarantee it's going to be a lot more than one time. You know why? Because you're human. We're going to screw up a lot of times. That's kind of the sole purpose. But yet again, we learn from our mistakes and continue trying to better yourself so you can help other people improve too. And that's something I literally cannot stress enough is, if you're going to be an artist and musician or anything in general, I understand people out there are going to be jealous. That's a huge thing. Another thing we're probably going to have to discuss for another time because we're hitting over an hour mark here already. But
Already?
Yeah, we've already been recording for a little over an hour, and we're hitting close to an hour and 8 minutes already.
Wow, it makes me glad I was able to get the back half of that.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of things to really consider. We're going to be talking a lot more about jealousy and people trying to attempt to steal your work or copy your work. It's something I'm very familiar with.
Guys. Any listeners who are listening, if you hear a sound and you want to take it, don't.
Yeah, it is. And then that literally goes for anybody, for any work you do. I'm personally, regardless of what the situation is going to be, I'm going to be discussing this in the long run in general. I might have a few other guests with me at the same time, possibly, to discuss this, because I know everyone has experienced this at least once in their life. And this is the one thing that is, it's like, a pet peeve is the truest understatement of the century for me. It's the one thing that honestly pisses me off more than anything I could possibly imagine, because I've experienced it. And if I work so hard for something, I should not have someone be able to take the credit for something I have done. And I know that will go for Quinn, that will go for any other musician, that will go for any other business owner or any like artist in general. I know at least once we're going to experience it, and if you have not already, be prepared, because you got to learn how to overcome that. I'm still dealing with it myself. I get really pissed off in general, as you can tell, because my tone of voice has drastically changed. It's something that I literally cannot stand, and I don't know. I can't say I don't know what I should do in order to battle this, because I totally do. It's just a matter of like, I don't know what causes people to even. Now, I can't even say that too, because I know that comes down to jealousy, or people like, oh, well, they get attention, so I'll just copy this and I'll just get more attention if I twist it up a bit. It's like, it's okay to draw inspiration.
Like that, don't take it even if you're jealous. Like,
yeah, it's not cool. Don't steal people's work. That's what it comes down to. Like I said, it's a whole nother conversation, but it is a huge factor because eventually I'm going to be talking more about copywriting material and everything too, because that's something we need to also really focus on once it comes down to being a musician. You got to know how to protect your work. You got to be able to figure out what your rights are, and everything along the lines of that, so you can protect your work, you can make your money, and so other people don't have to screw things up for you. So that's a whole lot more of like the legal system there. I know I can't go too much into detail about that because I'm not a legal advisor. I don't know any of that, too much information on that. I only know what I personally know based upon what has helped me. So based upon that, hopefully it can help other people as well. So if you come from me for legal advice or anything, don't, because that is not my specialty. If you want that, do your research, find someone else, please. I'm not going to get in trouble for that. But another thing we will be discussing real quick before we finish up here is a little bit more on venues. Now, venues are very, very important to take a look at because when I first started, I didn't know what venue I needed to be looking at. I'm like, well, obviously I can't be looking at venues like the Continental Theater or anything like ridiculous like that, or like the Orpheum Theater out here in Arizona. Like, I'm not expecting anything that big right off the bat because you know why? It's not going to happen unless you can sell. You need to sell a lot of tickets, and you got to be kind of grow yourself a lot more before you can get to that point. But from what I have learned for venues, although I do not drink or anything, my favorite places to play shows are always at bars because a lot of my friends drink. A lot of them like to have a good time. And kind of the way to think about it, a lot of people are going to bars in general to listen to music because that's where a lot of the venues are now.
Yeah. But that's not necessarily just alcohol bars. That could be coffee bars and other small ones with stages in their building.
Yes, exactly. That's something else I have done too. I have played at a coffee shop before multiple times. And you know what? The turnouts have been fantastic. I wonder why. Because people love the little snacks, the pastries. They want to get a nice cup of coffee or something like tea. And, it's a nice chill little place. Or maybe if you want to go to an actual alcoholic bar, then that's fine too. Because that's where the main places I normally do play at because, well, that's where my connection has started off. And that's how I know how to grow. Obviously, I want to continue playing at more coffee, like, bars and stuff or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. But it's really up to you. You don't have to play at any specific place. It's just a matter of, one, do your homework, figure out where you want to go, and be like, you know what? This place looks really cool. Look at the reviews, see what other people have to say about it. And I'm going to throw this out here too. If you guys need any information as far as maybe what's going to be the best venue for you, if you want to book a show or anything, let me know because by all means, once Quinn gets his stuff up and running, I'm going to be doing that stuff for him too because a lot of people just don't know what venues to start off with. And I get that. I had to do my research like crazy. I had to talk to a lot of people to be like, you know what? I got to give this place a shot. And you know what? There's some places that just did not work out. I will never go back to. Once again, I'm not here to ruin anyone's business or reputation or anything like that. So obviously, I'm not going to mention that. But there's just some places that you don't find comfortable. You're just like, or maybe it's too far away. But there's a lot of local places here, specifically in the Phoenix metro area in which we live. There are a lot of really, really good venues. And just to list a few, Tempe Tavern has always been a great place for me to play shows. Yucca Tap Room has always been a fantastic place. Timeout Lounge, they've been growing significantly for the longest time. I've always loved them. Now, if we're looking at larger places, the largest place I think I've ever played was at Club Red for one of the Phoenix Ska Punk Bowling events that were being put on. And I got to play that. Actually, I got to play at like Pub Rock multiple times too. And I'm like, Club Red is its own different thing. I'm no hate on it. I just don't know how they work. I know they're meant more for like metal bands and stuff like that a lot. But, they do put on some fantastic shows. I've seen some of these shows like sell out in seconds. So, I mean, some things are good. Some things could be a little bit better. That especially goes for every venue ever because, we're very opinionated in general. If you are into like more metal in general, Joe's Grotto is another fantastic one out in Phoenix. I personally worked with them a couple of times. I set up some shows myself for out there. It's always worked out wonders. I've set up shows at Yucca Tap Room, Tempe Tavern, Timeout Lounge. I've set up a lot of shows here and there. So if anyone does want a show set up, and in the future, if you want to even set up a show with other artists that I can make more connections through different artists and everything here, that would be fantastic. If you want to set something up, if you want me to set something up for you, if you just need help with something, let me know because that will be all on this channel. So we can go ahead and help everyone. But venues are very, very important. You need to know the right venue too. Now, if you're a punk musician, you got to be a little bit more careful on what venues you go to. If you're a metal musician, you got to be careful on what venues you go to, because some places are better than others. Now, just based upon my personal preference and just from what I've seen, if I was in hypothetically, let's say I was in a metalcore band, I would not want to go to Yucca Tap Room, because I see Yucca Tap Room more as a enclosed personal space for punk bands. Now, even though I know they have had their metal shows there, I personally see it more valuable as a punk venue. Now, anyone is free to disagree with me, like in any other video. I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you're a metalcore and you play there. If you want to play there, then play there, because they're a great venue. I'm just saying, just from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like a place that would attract more for a metal band. Now, for a metal band, if you go to Joe's Grotto, if you go to Club Red, or any place like that here in Phoenix or anywhere else in Arizona, I have a feeling you'll probably do a lot better, because they seem to specialize more on that. If you're more in a rock band, then you'll probably actually have an easier time everywhere, technically. But more, I still feel like it would probably still fit in more along lines with where the metal bands would play, because that just seems to be the norm. Now, if you want a good mixture between all genres, from what I've seen, pub rock is probably one of the best places for all genres that I have seen, or that I've been to and noticed for a while, because I've seen shows from punk shows, I've seen metal shows, I've seen indie, I've seen ska, I think I mentioned that already, but I've even seen reggae played there. I've seen so many genres play there, and you know what? They always do really, really well. And it's more of a diverse venue. And I'm not trying to give like one venue more of a shout out than anything else. I'm just trying to help people understand that once it comes down to venues, certain genres do work a lot better for certain venues than they would for other ones. And I know it's something that people don't really take a look at, and it's something we need to recognize a little bit more personally, the way I see it, but it's just for a little bit more help. If anyone wants any more, details or descriptions on that, let me know, because I'll be more than happy to discuss that with you guys.
I can't speak for those vendors, or venues, my bad, not vendors. But even if it's like an open mic night here or there, at like Sozo's Coffee here in Chandler, or something downtown Chandler, Gilbert, anything. Even in Mesa, there's a couple small venues. But just keep an eye out for open mic nights as well.
Yes, and that's actually a really great point. I'm really happy you actually brought that up, because open mic nights have helped me out tremendously. And I cannot actually strain that enough. Yes. And the people you meet at open mic nights are fantastic. And I know Joe's Grotto has their open mic nights on Mondays, I believe, unless that's changed. I'm pretty sure Yucca Tap Room does their own thing. I know at Devil's Advocate out on Mill Ave here in Tempe, Arizona, some close friends of mine, it is a bar, but it's on every Tuesday since it's Taco Tuesday. Some close friends of mine, Shoei and Wayne, they go ahead and organize open mic night at Devil's Advocate. And they bring their own equipment. They bring their own PA system. They have a drum set for you. They have everything set for you. And honestly, I've always had a great time. It depends on the time of day that, sometimes it's completely packed. Some days there's only like 2 people. But you know what? You got to, even if you're playing in front of 2 people, you got to act like there's a million people in front of you, because that's how I had to teach myself too. And I always kind of felt down and be like, oh, not many people showed up. Why am I doing this? But you can't have that mindset. The more likely you are to start thinking, be like, you know what? You got to play. This is how I think, and it's always helped. Every show you play, you better play like it's the last time you ever get to play a song in your life. And ever since I've been thinking like that, it's helped me tremendously. And it helped boost my confidence, my self-esteem. I feel like it's helped me tremendously just as a person in general. And
it sounds like it's from 8 Mile, but it's true.
Yeah, seriously. It helps out so much. But there's a lot of different open mic nights. I don't know other places that do it personally right now. that I can think off the top of my head. These are just some that I've personally noticed over a point in time that I've been doing a lot more stuff. So yeah, if you're an independent artist and you want to get your name out there and maybe you're just not comfortable going to a venue right away, go to an open mic night. You know why? Because majority of them are all there for the same reason. Some are going to be more professional. Some of them are just literally just starting that same day too. And the connections you can make are tremendous. That's how I've made my connections. That's how I inspire other people to make their connections as well. I've made some of my closest friends through open mic nights. And you know what? Eventually through open mic nights and making those contacts and those connections, that's how you end up actually getting onto larger shows. That's how you end up becoming more well-known as an artist, because they start helping you build your brand as well. So once again, as Quinn and I discussed before, and as we are all fully aware, communication is everything. Go to open mic nights. They are fun. Go find one, do your research, go to one, because honestly, I want to go back to Devil's Advocate personally, just myself, because a lot of my close friends go there constantly and they never judge you. There's never any hecklers. Everyone's there is just like drinking, eating, having a good time, just relaxing. They're all there for the same reason. And it is fantastic. So definitely, seriously, thank you for bringing that up from open mic night, because that is probably one of the best ways I could possibly imagine for anyone getting their start. If you're feeling nervous, just go with a close friend of yours. Be like, hey, would you come with me to open mic night? We'll have some fun. It's not always at a bar too. Like I said, some of them are even at coffee shops, so it can be for all ages. I know that's another difficult thing. All ages venues, another something I'll talk about in the future as well. But until then, Quinn, is there anything else you think maybe we might have missed? Something else you might want to bring up before we stop here?
No, I think that everything can be covered on a later video of some sort.
Okay, cool. So hopefully a little bit of this conversation here kind of help people understand a little bit more on just our personal feelings once it comes down to being a musician, what it actually does feel like, a little bit more on what it feels like getting started. Obviously, you're kind of going to be a little, you do get as far as like topics go and everything, it is going to vary. There's so much to discuss about. Even my brain has a hard time honestly keeping up with it, because there's so much to be discussed. But like we said before, all that can easily be saved for another time and for another video. So if you guys do want to hear another video, if there's a certain topic or a certain something that we might have discussed at a point in time that you would like us to elaborate on, or if you want Quinn to elaborate on something a little bit more, I'll be more than happy to get him on to another one of the videos so he can kind of discuss a little bit more. If there's something you would like on my end as well to kind of go into more into detail, obviously we'll be more than happy to do that as well. But until then, I'd like to thank everyone once again for tuning in and to listening into this. Thank you, Quinn, for being here and discussing as much as possible that your mic will allow you to.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
About all this. And until then, we will see all you guys in the next video and or podcast. So see you guys later.